Call of Duty is a third-person game. Prince of Persia is a first-person game. Stay tuned to find out why I've thrown the conventions of perspective straight out the window. Hello, Knights. My name is Lord Coucha, and I've been doing some thinking lately.
Here we go again.
Hey! Now, I know my opening statement may have sounded controversial, if not completely wrong, but I've been doing some analyzing of different narrative styles in video games, and I've come to some interesting conclusions that may just change the way you think you experience your favorite games. So, bust out your old high school English textbooks. We're getting literary. As a primer for those who are rusty in their language arts, I'll start by taking us on a quick tour through the three common modes of storytelling. First person is a narrative style where we as the audience sit in the mind of one specific character, typically the protagonist. We follow them and only them along the duration of the journey, often getting to hear firsthand what the character is thinking and feeling. It is as if we are the character, but as the audience, our personal input is non-existent. We are locked into a set path on the ride. The literary voice in this case refers to the protagonist as I or we. Good examples of first person in art include novels such as The Great Gatsby and many classic noir detective films. Second-person narrative is a bit different and definitely less common. The easiest way to exemplify this style would be through choose-your-own-adventure books. That is, you would read a passage that leads into branching storylines. From there, you, as an actual living character in the story, decide which path the story will proceed to follow, given a selection of choices. This style is not typically represented in the film medium because it inherently requires some form of communication or input-output from the audience member. You. Technology has allowed us to experiment with the concept through digital streaming services, like in the case of Black Mirror Bandersnatch, but the style is still non-existent in the movie theater. Lastly, we have the most typical narrative style in literature, third person. This style sees us, the audience, as an omniscient but uninvolved presence overseeing the story as it plays out. We get to watch the plot unfold with us standing on the outside, looking in. As the detached observer, we can follow any character and perhaps read their thoughts as well. The literary voice in this case refers to all characters, including the protagonist, as he, she, or they. Examples of this style can be seen in most journalistic writing and novels such as the Harry Potter series. Now, what does all this scholastic jive have to do with video games? Well, as far as traditional media is concerned, video games stand unique in that they require a constant feedback loop between the audience and the medium. A movie will play out continuously whether you're watching it or not. A book will sit unread until you pick it up, but even then, you're typically only following a single track with no deviation. But video games are a uniquely interactive form of media which incorporates the dynamic ability to change and react in accordance to the audience's decisions. Now, in an age where 3D graphics are commonplace, there seems to be a clear divide on how the virtual worlds are conveyed to the player. First person and third person. First person games are presented from the literal eyes of the protagonist character, controlling them from within. Notable franchises that utilize this perspective include Minecraft, Borderlands, and Doom. Third-person games are presented from above, behind, or otherwise outside of the protagonist character. It is like having an out-of-body experience where you are looking in at yourself doing everything you command it to do. Examples of third-person perspective in video games include the Super Mario, Sonic the Hedgehog, and the Legend of Zelda franchises. This line of thinking brought me to my original question which sparked this whole discussion. Why is there no second-person video game genre? What would a second-person game look like? Play like? Wait, what even is second person? So, after some research and some thinking, I figured out what I've been describing up until now. Returning to my opening statement, Call of Duty is a third-person game. Prince of Persia is a first-person game. This is where I want to make a very important distinction. When we refer to video games being in first person or third person, they are not descriptions of literary style, they are in reference to the game's presentation style, or genre for short. It's a bit of a misnomer, as even though they share the same names, first person and third person, the usage of the terms is completely different depending if we're talking about the literary style versus presentation style. Now, don't get me wrong, the genres or classifications make a certain amount of sense. Both first-person games and literation are presented from the perspective of the protagonist, without an ability to see through anyone's eyes but the main characters. Likewise, third-person games and literation share the aspect of being presented from the perspective of being anywhere at any time to watch the story unfold in a logical manner. This all makes enough sense to end the discussion here, but I'd like to take things a bit more meta from here on out. After all, I'm trying to chase down the elusive second-person perspective in video games. So, where can we find this undiscovered genre in the wonderful world of gaming? In my opinion, everywhere. This is where the conventions of literary narrative and game narrative begin to break down and form something new. Like I said earlier, video games are one of the most unique forms of media in existence. The key element with second-person narrative in literature is the you in the story. Like in choose-your-own-adventure books, where you are a direct character in the story with sovereignty to choose between branching paths at will, in the medium of video games, you are the constant driving force to the narrative. In Grand Theft Auto, you can choose who to help and who to hurt, which storyline to pursue. If you're like most people, you spent the vast majority of your time not participating in the story, instead going on an unbridled rampage throughout the city. But that is your choice. In any video game, everything that happens is because of you and what you have decided to do in the virtual world. The built-in narrative can never supersede your own real-world will and perdition. Running with that idea, let's reanalyze first and third person in relation to video games. First-person narrative implies following one specific character, perhaps even hearing their thoughts along the way. If you think about it, most third-person games are like this. In the Metal Gear series, you are always following Snake throughout the adventure. While we may not be able to read his mind, we as the player are often privy to his thoughts and feelings on a personal level. Additionally, we do not separate from character to follow NPCs when they leave the room, and we definitely can't read their minds either. This sounds a whole lot like first-person narrative if you ask me. While the game's presentation is in third person, the narrative is told almost exclusively in first person. Let's flip it. Third-person narrative implies following the story from above to witness the scenes unfold from any perspective. Again, if you think about it, most first-person games utilize this style as well. Many cheat here and there, breaking out of the protagonist's helmet to offer additional information to the audience. The Call of Duty franchise has been known for jumping between various characters, rather than sticking to only one, in order to tell a grander and more cohesive story. Halo and Destiny typically zoom the camera out to third person when mounting vehicles. Even the newer Doom games occasionally leave the perspective of the Slayer's eyes. And when I say cheat, I don't mean it as a bad thing. What makes video gaming so interesting is how each game, each concept, bends the conventional rules of presentation in different ways in order to provide the experience that makes the medium so unique. While most games stick to a singular literary narrative style throughout the story, first or third, The in-game camera perspective can often bounce around between first and third to service ease of gameplay or display directorial cinematic choices. And all the while, you are the one behind the steering wheel, constantly making personal decisions on how the greater experience is to unfold. Video games are a medley of perspectives, both literary and presentational, that, when carefully arranged, offer the amazing journeys and adventures that we just can't get in any other medium. TLDR, every video game in history is a second-person experience from both a literary and a presentational standpoint. There, I blew your mind. You're welcome. Hey, thank you all so much for sticking around to the end of this video. Let's try to come up with examples of games that utilize perspective in unusual or creative ways. Games that shift viewpoint for either literary or gameplay reasons. Whatever you come up with, enter second person mode and type your responses down in the comments below. Hitting the like button on your way down would be cool too. Also, I live stream a variety of awesome video games every week, usually Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on twitch.tv/LordCoucha. Come by and say hi. I've been having a blast streaming, and the chat is the perfect place to continue the discussion of this video with me personally. Thanks again, everyone. See ya!